Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube series that is not about me. And welcome to my Spotlight On series where I shine my little spotlight on the stars of theatre and musicals and chat with them about their careers so far in this business we call show. If you haven't seen me before, then hi, my name is Emily. I'm an actor-singer based in the UK and I spend my time either performing in musicals or talking about them. If you love all things theatre, music and musicals as much as I do, then click subscribe and join my stagey little online family. Also, while you're there, click the thumbs up if you would like to see more videos like this one on my channel. And if you are really into this, then comment down below with your favourite song from And Juliet. So welcome to my new series of videos where I will be chatting to the stars and creators of Broadway and West End theatre, the award winners and the fan favourites. Today I am lucky enough to be joined by Shakespeare himself. No, not the Shakespeare that you studied in school, but And Juliet's Shakespeare, the wonderful Oliver TOMPSETT. Mr. Oliver TOMPSETT graduated from Arts Ed before making his West End debut in 2002 in the Tim Firth Madness musical Our House at London's Cambridge Theatre. He then went on to perform in Mamma Mia, Notes from New York and Christmas in New York, Kismet and Over My Shoulder, the story of Jessie Matthews. He then went on to perform at the National Theatre in Peter Shaffer's The Royal Hunt of the Sun. Ollie then went on to join the original London cast of Wicked in 2006 as ensemble and understudy Fiyero before replacing Adam Garcia as full-time Fiyero in July 2007. He stayed with the Wicked family for 3.5 years, performing his final show on the 27th of March 2010. He then went on to originate the role of Drew in Rock of Ages, for which he was nominated a What's on Stage Theatregoers' Choice Award. Sticking with the rock theme, Oliver then went on to take over the role of Galileo in We Will Rock You in 2012, where he was once again nominated for a What's on Stage Theatregoers' Choice Award, but this time for Best Takeover of a Role. He remained with the show until its closure in 2014. Next up, Mr. TOMPSETT took on the role of Phil Davis in White Christmas, performing alongside Darren Day, before heading to the West End's Phoenix Theatre in Guys and Dolls in the role Sky Masterson. He reprised this role in Tel Aviv, Israel at the Opera House for 10 performances. After that, Ollie went on to perform in the musical Disaster at the Charing Cross Theatre in London, followed by a run in Kinky Boots as the lead role Charlie Price. He can now be found playing the charismatic and comedic Shakespeare in the award-winning production of And Juliet, which began its life at the Manchester Opera House before moving into its West End home of Shaftesbury Theatre in London, where it stays awaiting the reopening of theatres. Despite lockdown, Ollie has just finished filming a stage production of I Love You, You're Perfect Now Change with Lambert Jackson Productions, which is due to be streamed at the end of January. Right, that's more than enough from me. Let's hear from the man himself. That's right, we have finally got to the part of the video that you came here for. Here's what happened when I caught up with Oliver TOMPSETT. So you've had a really great successful career so far. I actually saw you in We Will Rock You and you were amazing. Well done.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
But when did your love of performing actually begin?
Well, I mean, it's been in my family a long time. My mum was a professional actress, and then she sort of threw it all in to have a family and basically be a mum. But then she set up a dance school as her living, because she used to dance a lot when she was younger. So so performing and sort of theatre has always been there. I remember my dad used to sing a lot, and they both used to do a lot of amateur dramatics when I was sort of growing up as a young kid through to my teenage years. And I took part in my mum's dance classes here and there, quite a lot, but I remember dipping in and out a bit throughout my teenage years, because I think I was quite a handful to teach. Having your mother teach you is not always the best situation. I remember throwing a few tantrums and saying, "I don't want to do this anymore." So I sort of flirted with it, in and out of it, when I was a kid, but I never really took part in it at school. I was quite shy of actually standing in front of an audience.
Yeah.
but I knew, I think I knew sort of 15, 16 that I kind of thought I quite fancied going into sort of performing as a career. I didn't really have many options. I wasn't really very academic,
Right.
but I just a few things being said to me like, oh, you've got quite a good voice. You should think about singing more, and little bits like that. That as a child you kind of go in the direction of whatever you're told you're quite good at and whatever you enjoy. So yeah, I don't remember there being a definite point, but uh, I do remember there being a moment when I saw Adam Garcia in Saturday Night Fever at the London Palladium when I would have only been about 16, 17, maybe younger. I remember seeing him and going, "Oh, hold on, this is quite a good thing. This guy's doing this." And I remember all these adoring fans
Yeah.
and everyone, and and being a teenager who found it very hard to get a girlfriend, I remember thinking, hold on, if I could do what he's doing, maybe I could get myself a girlfriend, which seems like a really shallow form of motivation. But as a teenage boy, I'm not surprised I was sort of working like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I went into performing and went into performing still knowing when I started training at Arts Ed that I was still quite nervous about actually performing in front of people.
Right.
It took me a long time to actually really feel like I was close to my best. I knew I had the potential to do it because I'd been brought up around performing arts, and I knew that I had a good enough voice and that I enjoyed telling stories as an actor, and I knew that I could move to some extent dance. But it did take me a long time to get over the nerves of actually doing it in front of people. Still to this day, if I could just perform not in front of people, I would do it. But it doesn't work like that.
No, certainly not. And what was your first professional role that you got after drama school?
My first job was Our House, a swing track on Our House, which I would recommend to any graduate, anyone to do a swing role because it's like an extension on your training where you have to learn everything, and then when you get given a first cover or a second cover, an understudy of some sort, just learning that one track is a breeze once you've been a swing, and it makes you courageous. Like it made me. It was kind of the best thing for me to sort of shake off all those nerves because I was forced to go in front of the biggest audience I've ever been in front of and potentially make mistakes as a swing. You're not always 100% rehearsed in. So it was a really good job. It had its hurdles. It was the first time I sort of realized that this was a job and that after the 3 months or so, the honeymoon period, you have to do it every night and you do the same material every night for a year. And that's a learning curve as well, sort of finding a way of keeping it fresh. But yeah, Our House was my very first credit, and then I was in the ensemble of a few other shows like Mamma Mia, and then in Wicked, and then from Wicked I was promoted to play Fiero from being an understudy, which funnily enough was understudying Adam Garcia, who
Yeah.
my sort of my inspiration of going to the show. When we started rehearsals, I remember saying to him like a big fangirl, like, "I think you're amazing. You're the whole reason I went into performing." So that was a privilege, and to take over him was amazing, and also a massive catalyst and a big break for me to go on to play lots of other lead roles.
You stayed in Wicked for 3.5 years, is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's about that long. Yeah, I think the first year was obviously in the ensemble understudying, and then the next year was just such a big jump up and into playing a lead role, and your wage increases quite a lot. So signing on for another year after that was an easy decision. Because I was having a good time there, and I love the building, I love the people at Wicked, and B, it was the first time I was actually making some good money to sort of start to save and set yourself up for the future,
Yeah.
etc., etc.
You then originated the role of Drew in Rock of Ages in the West End. That's quite a different role from Fiero. So how was it going from a role you played essentially for sort of 2+ years to a brand new role with a very different singing style? How was that change?
Yeah, well, I mean, I always knew I was sort of a high tenor, and I grew up listening to power ballads on VH1 and Queen, and I'd auditioned for We Will Rock You a handful of times um, before, and I believe after I was in Wicked, or definitely before anyway. I'd auditioned for a handful of times, and they'd always just sort of said, "No, you're not right for it. You're too tall," because he's meant to be sort of you know, a, a sort of rebellious teenager. The part in We Will Rock You. So I knew I wanted to get my kicks and sing that kind of material.
Yeah.
And when Rock of Ages was coming over, I kind of only knew of a handful of um, male performers, singers in the musical theatre circuit, really, that could actually sing it. I was like, there's not many that I know can sing it. And I didn't consider myself as one of the easiest options because there was sort of a handful of guys I knew had a higher range than me. And I remember listening to the soundtrack and going, oh, I mean, who's going to be able to do that 8 times a week? And I'd come off the back of when I left Wicked, I was signed on a record deal to Warner Brothers and had the worst time. I mean, apart from the fact that I had a small amount of income that I could live off for doing no work for about 18 months, but it was just not what I imagined the music industry to be. And just the team I was working with didn't have my best interests at heart. And it just turned out to be something that I was like, you know what? I don't like this, which was weird because I thought to myself that the music industry was somewhere I would rather go than the theatre land at some point when I was younger, but it turned out not to be. And so when that was sort of all going south, I could see that Rock of Ages was coming over, and I remember speaking to my manager, who managed me on the record label side of it, and saying, "I think I'm going to go for this because I don't want to hang around and do nothing for another year."
Yeah.
And I auditioned, and I got it, and it was amazing, but frightening because, like you say, it was a different style of singing. It was something I knew I could do, but I knew that the sort of stamina side of it and the training I needed to get up to scratch on, and I did though. I just approached it with a professionalism and trained like an athlete and got my voice in the best shape it could be, using the techniques. And they supported us really well with vocal coaches, amazing singing teacher who I still see to this day, called Dane Chalfin, who basically when I first met him was like, the way you're singing now, that's not going to work. It doesn't, because it was very musical theatre.
Yeah.
It was, the range was there, but it's very musical theatre, and he put all this sort of rasp and this gravel in my voice that made me a little bit more authentic in the show, which obviously I took on to We Will Rock You afterwards.
Right.
So I'd gone from being Fierro, who was this sort of typical leading man type, sort of slightly wet musical theatre type role, and to people going, "Oh, that's what you do," and then all of a sudden I was this rock guy. And then after that, people were like, "Oh, you're the rock guy," and they wouldn't see me for other things. And so I had to sort of hold out and try and do something that was completely different, which led me to into my next job, which was Guys and Dolls, which I had to take a little bit of a gap between We Will Rock You and Guys and Dolls, and I did a show in West Yorkshire Playhouse and stuff, which again was completely different, which was a dance classic show, production of White Christmas. But that's always been my aim, is to surprise people and to try and be a chameleon, because the sooner you can sort of prove to people that you are versatile, the more longevity you have in your career. And I think I'm now at a point where people, instead of just assuming what your last job was, they now go, actually, give him a chance. He can sing anything if we give him the time of day. So I'm glad it worked, but it was hard to sort of stop being pigeonholed all the time.
You've been nominated for a number of awards for your performances, but for you personally, what's been the proudest moment in your career so far?
The proudest moment for me normally come from events rather than recognition. Awards are, they're flattering, but I feel that awards can cause more of a divide than they do bring us together. And it's a sort of very tricky subject to sort of get right, because obviously people do hold the people who win the awards in high esteem, and I don't particularly, but professionally it's a good move to have an award or a nomination under your belt. But at the same time, when you see so many talented people not being recognised because maybe they don't have the profile or opportunity and stuff, it kind of puts your feet on firm ground. Whenever I've been nominated for something, I try and celebrate it, but at the same time, I also don't want to put too much pressure on it, because I think your experience and the proof is in the pudding of what you do, rather than what awards or nominations you've been given, because there's so much politics involved in it. But the proudest moments in my career, to answer your question, I'm sorry, probably have been the moments like the closing night of We Will Rock You. Sort of the first time I went on with Idina Menzel in Wicked, it was the first time I'd sort of really got to play a big role on the West End. I'd understudied before in Mamma Mia and Our House, but something about Wicked just felt really, I was really proud, and the orchestra, that show is just class. But so events are, for me, the proudest moments are the events like that, and opening a show like Rock of Ages and being the original London cast of that, and then even doing Guys and Dolls, when it brings me a sense of pride, because I know that I've worked hard to convince people to put me in a role like that, which is in theory a baritone classic piece of musical theatre, which I was in a rock tenor, modern piece of jukebox musical, So every time I can step outside my comfort zone and prove people wrong is the sort of the prouder moments for me. But then also just actually celebrating theatre and yourself as well, like nights like when we opened And Juliet, and that's my first role I've originated. That's the role, even though Shakespeare is obviously a character and a real life person. My version of Shakespeare is not historically correct. So we had fun with the director really working out what would work and what would very quickly say to an audience, don't expect typical Shakespeare here. And Juliet, it's its own world. All the characters are their own characters. Juliet is flipped on its head. Romeo is flipped on. Everything is different. So that very much did feel like I created a role. And I know that show is going to go on for years. And I think that from knowing the director, I think each time those roles are played, they will be almost like creating new roles. I think for someone to come in and to try and do what I do would not work for them necessarily. Likewise, I wouldn't work if I did what they do. And it's not to say that it would be any better or any worse. It's just different. So I feel like I've created a role in And Juliet with Shakespeare, but at the same time, I don't feel like it will be done again like that. At least I hope not, because I think the show revolves around, originality and inclusivity and acceptance, and people just accepting the fact that everybody is different.
Are you going back to And Juliet after theatres open? Is that the plan?
Yeah, that's the plan. They've been amazing, our producers, and kept us very much in the loop. But obviously, they're not being kept in the loop any more than we are with really what's happening with government guidelines. So all they're doing is being as positive as they can and just trying to have a plan at least in place. And then when that gets scuppered, they're positive and they make another plan. So we've been told that we will go back in 3 months' time for the past year. So it's but I mean, this time it does feel a bit more realistic. I think they've just announced that May 28th we're planning on getting back to performances. So even if we can with some social distancing, I think that's the most optimistic we've been for the past year.
Absolutely.
But if it gets pushed back again, then maybe it'll be the summer or closer to the summer. But one way or another, I think what people are going to need after this are the feel-good shows, and Juliet is definitely one of those. Have you seen it?
No, and that's what was one of my questions. Well, I didn't really get a chance, to be fair. Yeah, I was on quite a roll at the start of this year, going to see lots of shows, and then obviously nothing since February.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you just to give a quick outline of what this Romeo Juliet is like, because I'm aware that it's nothing like what we
Yeah, well,
see.
I think you can see what they've done with Wicked, which is where they've taken the Wizard of Oz and there's sort of an alternative story, looking at it from a different angle through the eyes of different characters and twisting. So then you have something you're initially very much familiar with, but so how do those characters weave into it? And so you start off right from the beginning of the show, kind of going, okay, so we know a bit about this. You're intrigued immediately. And I think that's kind of what we've done with Anne Juliet, but it's like a play within a play, where we start with the rehearsal room, which is like has a Renaissance-y feel, but also very modern and funky pop world of a modern day rehearsal space, where Shakespeare is handing out these prologues saying, "I've got this great idea. It's going to be amazing. Check it out. This play is going to be brilliant." And he pitches the ending of Romeo and Juliet that we know and love,
Yeah.
and it falls on deaf ears, and everyone's like, "No, it doesn't sound." They do what? They kill themselves? I'm not sure if that's and everyone's sort of poo-pooing it. So we're very much having a taking the mick out of Shakespeare, but at the same time, everyone in the audience is very aware that it's not disrespectful because Shakespeare is the most successful playwright of all time. So
Yeah.
that's where the comedy comes from. And Shakespeare's wife intervenes and says, "What if we did this? What if we try and do this?" And so then throughout the show of Anne Juliet, we see Juliet explore an alternative ending. So instead of killing herself, she puts down the knife and she goes out with her her nurse and with her best friends, who one of them is a non-binary character, and then William Shakespeare's wife writes herself into the play, and he's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! You can't just be in it." So it's kind of it jumps in and out of the rehearsal space of Shakespeare and the world of Romeo and Juliet, and we explore what if Juliet took her own destiny into her own hands. So it very much has a message of female empowerment, with Shakespeare's wife taking control over this very, very controlling, narcissistic playwright who's kind of going, okay. But every time things start to go well for Juliet, Shakespeare sort of intervenes. And we do that by the sort of the passing of the quill. So when I have the quill, I'm in charge of the story. I'm trying to make it into a tragedy. And when Anne Hathaway, Shakespeare's wife, has the quill, she's in control of it. So it proves for a very witty, farcical storyline, accompanied with this amazing pop catalogue, which is brilliant. And the words of the pop songs have just been intertwined so brilliantly. I mean, she sings at the point where she would normally be killing herself, Juliet. "Oh baby, baby, how was I supposed to know?" over Romeo, who's died. "How was I supposed to know you're going to kill yourself?" And little lyrics like that, you go, "That's very clever. That it makes sense." So not only do we have this sort of feel good pop show that kind of goes really well, because Shakespeare was sort of a pop star of his time. He was popular culture, and a prolific writer. And our songs are by the biggest pop song hit writer of all time. That, on the flip side, no one really knows of Max Martin. They only know of the people he writes for. So this was a very public thing for him to do, to go, okay, yeah, these are my songs. And I think everyone he writes for probably wanted him to stay quiet, because it takes away some of the glory.
Yeah.
But he's a very generous man, and he worked alongside us really closely. And a lot of the stars like Katy Perry, Jessie J, Ed Sheeran, they've all been to see the show, and they're all planning on coming to see the show. So it's been amazing for the show to meet these people, but also very heartwarming to see these people are so friendly with Max, the writer, which just kind of represents how generous he is with his talents, really. So sorry, I went off on a tangent, but yeah, it's a rewrite of Romeo and Juliet, finding an alternative ending for her, which explores female empowerment, acceptance and inclusivity of no matter what gender, sex, race, size, you know, uh, whatever kind of person you want to be is hopefully celebrated in our show as much as we can, um, and um, and that message is very strong. Also, along with youth empowerment, there's a part in the show where the quill gets snapped, which represents that neither me or my wife have control of the play, and the players, the ensemble that have been present throughout the whole show, and Romeo and Juliet and all the other youngsters seem to take control of the story and could take control of her own destiny. Um, which again is very funny because you're watching Shakespeare, who's obviously normally very much in control, and he then writes himself into the show as a cameo character and tries to sort of intervene that way. But when we were rehearsing it, we were like, okay, is this funny? We don't know. And our very first preview in Manchester, it was so funny and it was so good. We stripped out so many jokes just so we could actually tell a story and get the show done. Because the laughter was so raucous.
Oh wow!
And that's an absolute gift as an actor as well. My stuff particularly is just so well written. Are you aware of the sitcom Schitt's Creek?
I haven't seen it, but I do know about it.
Right. So a very successful, huge American sitcom. Not everyone's cup of tea, but it won all the Emmys or Grammys. But yeah, our writer is one of the lead writers on that.
Wow.
So and he writes in a very sort of Blackadder British humour.
Nice.
So it works so well with the land of Shakespeare and the land of modern sort of sitcom.
Well, you've sold it to me. I'll be there in May.
It's a really long or roundabout way of selling it to you, but
you just sold
I don't talk about it much to anyone, so I'm just kind of making up for like a year worth of not talking about it.
To be honest, it sounds great because I remember, I think as most people do, reading Romeo and Juliet. I think it was year 9 or something like that, and everyone's like, "Why did she kill herself?" Like nobody was happy about that. So this sounds so great.
I know. I mean, it still has elements of tragedy in it, but there's a lovely resolve, and I think that's what people need is some feel good, and obviously something that they can relate to very quickly. So, and also have a good night. People are bopping, laughing, and just having a really good time.
So, it sounds incredible. I'm just going to change the subject slightly.
Go for it.
Just finished filming a staged production of I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change. Yeah. How was it to do that? Because did you perform it on stage, but it's been filmed to stream? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, we did about a week of dropping in and out of music calls on Zoom, where we'd learn the music and the script, because I don't know if you know the show, but it's like a sketch show.
I've been in it actually. Yeah.
Oh, have you? Great. Yeah. So you know that there's sort of the sketch and then normally a song that follows each section, and it's the opportunity. It's an actor's gift really, because you get to just explore these different characters. So we had 3 days in a rehearsal room, and then we had 2 days to film it. Obviously, we went into rehearsal on the Monday, which was last Monday, and then on the 8 o'clock that evening was when Boris announced the second lockdown. Because it was work and because it was a filming production, and we were doing all the other social distancing guidelines and stuff, we were allowed to continue. And the Coliseum where we were rehearsing and filming it, because we'd started, said, "Look, we'll let you finish the project, but Sunday we're closing the theatre." So we were like, right, we have to get this done. Wow. And rehearsing a show that is about relationships with social distancing is so tricky. I mean, we weren't even allowed to, and also singing, weren't even allowed to sing in the direction of each other within 3 meters or something, or 2 meters.
Wow.
And we had to do a lot of sort of camera trickery to make it look like we were sort of interacting. And then sadly, one of our cast members lost a family member and had to return back to his home country on the day of filming. So we had to, on top of that, we had another hurdle where we had to rehearse in someone else who'd done the show before, Simon Lipkin, who I've worked with a lot. And luckily, he's very quick, very clever. And we managed to get it done, and we got it filmed. We had to cut quite a few numbers. The original plan was I think we were losing about 4 numbers already, but with the time frame, I think we ended up losing another 2 numbers. Which, in the grand scheme of things, because there isn't really a huge through line.
Yeah.
If you try and put too much through line in it, it becomes very clunky and confusing.
Yeah.
I know I've seen productions where they do try and put a through line through it, and I think sometimes it's best just to do the skit, do it as little bite-sized chunks. So we got it done, but it was tricky. But we filmed it on the Colosseum stage, but instead of from the audience's point of view, where the audience would be looking and we would have the stage behind us, we flipped it around like a few of the concerts that have happened at the Colosseum, where we used the seats and that beautiful theatre as our backdrop.
Yeah.
And then filmed it and had our band on stage and stuff. And so from what I've seen, it looks really good. But it did have its challenges massively. And also, we all were like, everyone was on edge because we were coming in to London.
Yeah.
When they were constantly, the news was saying, 1 in 30 people have got it. It's on the rise. Also, the sort of guilt of them saying, if you don't need to go to work, don't go to work. So you're kind of feeling, is this really necessary?
Yeah.
But at the same time, you don't want to be the person who pulls the plug on a whole production, because the producers who have put this production on are trying to provide work and for actors and entertainment for people who will be suffering at home from not being able to go to theatre. So there was a lot of conflict involved. So then trying to make a comedy whilst that was the general feeling in the air was very hard. But we did have a giggle. We did manage to have a good laugh and find ways of enjoying it as well as remaining very professional. But I'm not gonna lie, it was weird. It was very strange.
Yeah.
Very strange. I don't think it will feel strange to an audience. I think people will forgive moments that obviously, they had to keep their distance there, or that there's a hurdle. But I think on the whole, the piece is so good and so funny, and we're all going through so much of what was in that piece just in our own friendships and relationships, be it remotely, be it being single and on your own at the moment, or be it with your partner that you're living with 24/7. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there are loads of moments in it that are so topical and current that I think it's worth getting it finished and done and getting it out there. So yeah, tune in, watch it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a fan of it anyway, so I would definitely be watching. Also a fan of literally every person in it. I mean, I saw Simon do it at Above the Arts a few years ago, so I've already seen him in action in that show, and he's pretty hilarious. So
yeah, I mean, I think all these kind of shows, especially comedy, they are gonna be funnier in the flesh.
Yeah, of course.
And it is weird. We don't have any audience to bounce off. There's no laughter. We won't have any canned laughter. At least I don't think we will. I hope we don't. That would be very. But so it will be different. But this whole year has been different, so we all have to adapt and accept what's going on here.
What piece of advice would you give to somebody who's starting out in the industry? Not necessarily like a recent graduate, maybe someone that's been plugging away and hasn't had their break yet, but just someone who sort of hasn't had a lot of experience yet. What advice could you give?
I mean, nowadays, the way I see it, to get into any art form is that you just have to practice it in every which way you can. And that only comes from a place of you can't imagine yourself doing anything else with your time. I remember turning that point when I went to college, but it doesn't mean that you have to go to college, because there are platforms everywhere there's learning online. You just have to seek it. I mean, yes, going to college does almost do a lot of the hard work for you, but I honestly think if I hadn't gone to college, I'd still come to the decision that this is what I wanted to do, I would have spent that time seeking as much knowledge, training, and experience as possible. I would never shy away from a karaoke opportunity, because it's another opportunity to get up and sing in front of people. And it may sound vain, but some of the time it was more the fact that I knew I had a fear of standing up in front of people, so I would do it.
Yeah.
Because I knew if I wanted to do it in front of people and actually get paid for it, make a living at it, or eventually get over that hurdle,
Yeah.
I had to do it as much as I could. So take every performance opportunity you can. Just be a total yes man, yes woman, and just do it. And anything that scares you, do it, because it's the only way you're going to get over it and get better at it, is by confronting all your fears. Even auditioning now is still scary for me, but it's definitely getting easier. And you have to remember, everyone else is in the same boat. Everyone else is scared.
Yeah.
The people who sort of give off that "I'm not scared" aura is just the fact that they've practiced that "I can give off that aura" enough. So you have to find a way of practicing convincing yourself. And be it sort of being kind to yourself. When you make a mistake, when you don't get the job, you have to be kind to yourself. I've lost so many jobs, but I've also done a ton load. When I look at what I've done, I'm like, whoa, I've been very lucky. I've been pretty busy. But that has come from hard work, and that has come from rejection. And for me, I never really felt like I started to grow as an actor until I felt like I'd failed.
Right, okay.
So don't be scared of that moment happening, because it will, if it is the only thing you want to do, then it will be the turning point, and from there on, you will find that work will start coming, jobs will start going, you'll start getting better, more importantly, and eventually your break will come. But you have to be open to fail before you can really succeed, because all the successful people, all the people that you want to compete against and get a job over, will have failed a lot. So don't be frightened of it.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
It's all right.
Thank you so much for a lovely chat. I really enjoyed meeting you.
No, it's a pleasure.
I really hope that you enjoyed me shining my little spotlight on Oliver Tomsett today. If you did, then please click the like button, and if you'd like to see more videos like this one on my channel, then hit subscribe, because I have so many ready and waiting to go on my channel. More incredible stars of the stage, award winners, directors and writers. You will not want to miss it. Take care, everyone. Bye. Hi, thank you so much for getting to this part of the video. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch. I'd love it if you could click subscribe so we can stay in touch, and a little like would be nice as well. So why don't you leave a comment, just say hi, or let me know any songs you like or anything you'd like to see me cover on this channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!